You're tired. You're overwhelmed. The work just keeps piling up. You've got that weird tingly sensation in your stomach, and you just don't know where to turn. You might be experiencing some anxiety at this point, but don't worry. We're here to help. I'm Megan Corder.
I'm Katie Sikora.
And I'm Carrie Gochnauer.
Welcome to our presentation. Did you know that according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, 1 in 4 young adults ages 18 to 24 has a diagnosable mental illness? And more than 80% of college students have felt overwhelmed by all they've had to do in the past year, and 45% have said that they felt things were hopeless. And we obviously don't want that to happen, so we're here to talk to you about anxiety. Just like Anxiety Girl, it's really easy to jump to the worst conclusion in a single bound, and we don't want you to do that. Instead, we want to give you manageable strategies to help you improve your awareness of anxiety and work well with students.
So what is anxiety, you might ask? It's that stress, upset feeling, lack of attention, worry, and annoying symptoms that most everybody gets, but they are manageable. These feelings are normal in moderation and, like I said, affect most people from time to time. The more common occurrences include test anxiety or lack of attention caused by a lack of sleep or an excess of excitement. These symptoms don't usually last more than 24 hours and can be managed or worked through by the affected person if given time. So just like this little guy who's stressed out, if you give him time, he'll be able to work through it. But anxiety disorders are a different case. These ones have symptoms that are magnified from all the symptoms known by anxiety and prevent a person from going about their normal routine. These include a near constant state of anxiety, unneeded or irrational worry, instant panic with little to no provocation, and concerns about areas that really don't warrant concern. These symptoms prevent the person from going about daily routines and make it hard for them to interact with others or leave their house.
So, we want to explain a little bit about the difference between anxiety and an anxiety disorder. So we found this great video to help explain. What's really important to note here is that it's normal to feel either of these things, but the level in which you feel them is determined by what you're experiencing.
Anxiety and anxiety disorders. Everyone experiences it.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, but don't worry, we'll be back soon.
It helps us prepare for important events. Anxiety can keep us from harm's way, like not walking in front of a speeding car. Anxiety is the brain's way of preparing us to take action, such as remembering to lock the door. Each of us has a different relationship with anxiety, even though you can't tell just by looking at us. For some, anxiety is uncontrollable and persistent, even when there is no threat or danger. When anxiety interferes with daily activities, you may have an anxiety disorder. Some people have panic attacks. Others fear being judged and avoid situations. You may have thoughts you cannot stop. You may do things over and over to try to make the anxiety go away. You may feel alone, but over 40 million children, teens, and adults have these very common brain disorders. You may feel too embarrassed to tell even your closest friend. An anxiety disorder can lead to avoidance of everyday situations, like meeting a friend at the library. Through scientific research, we have learned a lot about the brain, anxiety disorders, and effective treatments. Take back your life by getting professional help. Learn about anxiety disorders and get treatment so you can triumph over anxiety disorders. For more information, visit www.adaa.org. Presented by the Anxiety Disorders Association of America.
To differentiate anxiety versus anxiety disorder, we have another resource for you. The ADAA also provides us with a brochure that talks about some common differences between anxiety and an anxiety disorder. I'd like to draw your attention to the left-hand side of the brochure. This is where the ADAA describes anxiety and anxiety disorders. Anxiety is often occasional, usually brought on by stressful events such as a midterm or public speech. An anxiety disorder is continued anxiety that disrupts multiple facets of life, such as disturbing classwork and social experiences. Symptoms of anxiety and anxiety disorders appear differently as well. Anxiety symptoms include feeling uncomfortable in social situations, random feelings of nervousness, realistic fears, and yearning for the feeling of normalcy. Anxiety disorders, however, appear as repeated panic attacks, avoidance when no danger is present, and repeated uncontrollable motions.
Some common types of anxiety disorders are the ones listed here. These include generalized anxiety disorder, otherwise known as GAD, which is something that involves an always present, extreme feeling of anxiety that prevents daily activities. This could be an example as a student that hasn't been out of their room all day but has a group project to attend. The student strongly believes that they will be judged by all of the residents on the floor if they come out of their room, so they decide to stay and miss the meeting rather than face the anxiety of leaving. A second common type is a panic disorder. This includes frequent, sudden attacks of terror, panic, and constant fearfulness. An example of a student with this would be a student that routinely knocks on their RA's door in the middle of the night, panicked and convinced that everyone on the floor has left and the student is the only person still at EIU. Another common type is an obsessive-compulsive disorder, otherwise known as OCD. This includes unreasonable thoughts, fears, and obsessions that lead to repetitive behavior or compulsions. The student with this might have an example as a student that makes multiple return trips to their room to check that they remember to unplug their straightener before getting on the elevator.
We have another resource for you. As is often the case within student affairs, we love to hear student stories, and we think that through this poetry reading, you can really understand one of the stories that someone who faces and encounters anxiety often will experience.
There is a German satellite falling to Earth. She says, "What if it hits me?" Welcome to Anxiety Group, the kingdom of the sweaty palm and the jiggling leg, where the women wrap themselves up tight, where the men bite nails till blood. We are the magnifiers of molehills. We are the princes of panic, the ambassadors of anguish. There is no pride here. We lack the discipline of the eating disorder group, lack the self-righteousness of bereavement group, and we're not as fun as Procrastinators Anonymous. Nobody wants to be here. Me? I don't sleep, can't sleep. I make insomnia look professional, make your tossing and turning look like afternoon hiccups. The longest I've gone is 9 days, went literally insane. Sleep deprivation is a form of torture, you know, and I do this to myself. Melatonin makes me sad. Benadryl is for amateurs. Hypnotics turn off the lights too quickly. And weed makes me crazy. Diazepam, lorazepam, bromazepam, alprazolam. Klonopin is the only thing that works, and they're weaning me off it. So, like a baby forced to remove breast from mouth, take bottle instead, I got sent to Anxiety Group. And apparently, we're all going to die, because while the girl to my left worries that the satellite will hit her, the woman to my right worries that it will hit a nuclear power plant, and then we're all fucked. My father says only rich people go to therapy. Poor people got shit to do, and yet here I am in this lifeboat surrounded by 8 of the most beautiful, crazy-ass motherfuckers the world has ever seen. What if it's not just a mole? What if it's a flesh-eating virus? What if I fail at life? But what if it really is the rapture this time? What if they hit us again? What if I wake one morning to see planes scraping skies again? What if it's me this time? And I think, wow, It must be exhausting to want to live this much. Fuck the depressives. Fuck the body image meditation group. Fuck Sex Addicts Anonymous. Give me your tired, your poor, your anxious, your huddled masses yearning to breathe deeply and count to 10. Give me this collection of blurted confessions of psychosomatic itch, of twitch and tick and stutter and sweat. Give me these weak-kneed, jumpy ass, too much saliva, break out in hives, awkward stomach, hair falling out, chewing lips, restless leg pounding, heart bastards. Any day of the week. These people who fight through every day like fucking gladiators, who fight demons worse than you and I can dream of just because they want so badly to live. To hold on, to love, because you can't be this afraid of losing everything if you don't love everything first, because you have to have a soul-crushing hope that things will get better, to be this afraid of missing it.
So, as a note, we do know that video touches on some interesting language, but we really didn't want to dull the stories of these students and the stories of these individuals.
We also wanted to provide some common anxiety statistics so you know what to expect when working with students. The first one, anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the U.S., affecting 40 million adults. 75% of those affected will experience an episode before they reach age 22. And signs vary by person, but common symptoms include feelings of stress and apprehension, irritability, trouble concentrating, fearfulness, sweating, dizziness, shortness of breath, irregular heartbeat, muscle pain and tension, headaches, or frequent upset stomach and diarrhea.
Now, obviously, having anxiety or an anxiety disorder would affect multiple areas of students' lives. Here, we have highlighted 3 main areas of effect. The first one is academics, as obviously an anxiety of being around other people, as seen in social anxieties and different things like that, would hinder a student's ability to attend class regularly, to focus in class if they're too anxious of being judged by the students around them, and the ability to finish homework assignments successfully and on time. A second area is interacting with others, both in class, as was said with academics, with roommates, and then all sorts of other things as easy as boiling down to going and trying to order something at maybe Subway or something like that. Another one is extracurricular activities, where anxiety can hinder their ability to hold leadership positions if they feel like they're never living up to what they should be. Intramurals, if they don't feel like they're able to be around people or able to perform those sports correctly. And then clubs as well, figuring into all of those.
We want to make it clear that signs do not always appear to be physical. While working with students, you should also watch out for college students who are transitioning, students who feel inadequate, and students who have previous psychological disorders. Margarita Tartovsky explains to us that students experience many firsts, including new lifestyle, friends, roommates, exposure to new cultures, and alternate ways of thinking. Harrison Davis, a professor of counseling and who coordinates the Community Counseling Center, also tells us if students do not feel adequate or prepared to cope with the new environment of a college campus, they could easily become susceptible to depression and anxiety. If a college student's transition is rocky and feelings of inadequacy go unaddressed, previous psychological disorders can resurface.
More than 11% of college students have been diagnosed or treated for anxiety in the past year. So what does this mean for our student affairs professionals? Well, essay pros can help by learning to identify the symptoms of anxiety, educating yourself about the disorder and the distinction between the disorder and feelings of anxiety, promoting student involvement, being patient by pushing a student to make decisions or decide on something they're not comfortable doing isn't going to help the problem. Being prepared and having resources for students and parents, being proactive and talking to students. But be careful when you do this because it's appropriate to do it in private and use observing language.
Now, what can you do when you have a student in your office? These things are advice student affairs professionals can give to students. You can help students develop an action plan, be an active listener, eliminate unnecessary stressors, identify your level of energy, whether that energy is physical, mental, or emotional, participate in relaxation exercises such as meditation, and schedule strategic breaks. There are also things you should not do. You should not ignore a student's physical reactions, encourage students to blame others, push past a student's barriers, add new demands to push away feelings, argue with students, complicate the situation, devalue a student's concern, or imply that they should not seek help.
So, now you have a student that you think may be experiencing some of these symptoms. How do you refer them? It's incredibly important that you contact your campus health or counseling center. Call the psychology or behavioral health department for information about counseling services. If the student's religious, it might be appropriate to contact a spiritual leader. Recommend that your student talk to a physician or search the ADAA website for therapists and support groups that are close to home. It's imperative that you connect students to resources because that's one way that they can begin to process. Here are some additional resources for student affairs professionals, such as I would like to highlight Active Minds, which is an organization promoting mental health, as well as just other general resources that it's good to know about. There are different types of anxiety, so how students process them are different, and how you react should be different too.
Here are some tips for anxious college students. You can encourage students to plan ahead, embrace the productivity style that works for them. If feeling anxious, avoid coffee, choose course loads strategically, take breaks during assignments, avoid pulling all-nighters, seek out resources if you need them, ask professors for class-specific study tips, and find ways to release stress and emotions. We'd like to finish with some frequently asked questions that you may have. The first one being, do I have an anxiety disorder? The answer, everyone experiences anxiety, it's what makes us reactive, but persistent anxiety episodes may lead to an anxiety disorder. Secondly, what causes anxiety disorders? Anxiety is linked with family history, but life events, risk factors, and personality can all affect how anxiety manifests in each person. The next question is, what treatment options are available? Anxiety disorders can be treated with medication, therapy, or a combination of both. And lastly, what kinds of medication are used for anxiety disorders? Medications used to treat anxiety disorders include SSRIs, SNRIs, benzodiazepines, and triglyceric antidepressants.
Thank you so much for listening to our presentation. We hope that perhaps this started to quell some of the nervousness and tension you feel in your body as you start to process through your own anxiety. If you're interested in looking at our references and resources, please check our PowerPoint slides at the end of the presentation. Have a great day.